So hello, very warm welcome to the VAR show, the show which talks about all the various major football leagues in detail. Today, we are going to continue with interviews, and we have Mr. Warren Barton, who has played for the likes of Newcastle and among a host of the teams in the Premier League, and also for England. So first of all, I would like to first thank Warren for coming on the show. Thank you, and like during this pandemic period, where probably it's difficult for many people. You have come, you have taken out time, and like to talk. Thank you so much, and welcome to the show. And I would like to begin by asking you, how are you, and what have you been doing? These days.
Well, yeah. Well, first, thank you very much for having me on the show. And with this pandemic, I think we've all got used to Zoom calls now and getting on calls with people all over the world. And it's a pleasure, obviously, to speak to yourself and your fan base as well. Yeah, I'm keeping well. It's been a tough year, or virtually a year coming up for everybody. I live in San Diego, which is in California, United States, and we're very lucky with the weather and the conditions where we live, but also the restrictions that we've had. But there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's been great that we've been able to watch the Premier League, the Liga, games that are playing as well. So that's keeps us obviously focused. But yeah, it's what it's been able to do. I think for a lot of ex-players is to be involved with the fans, and people can't go to the games. And out of all this pandemic, I think it's notified that the fans are a big part of the global game. Not being in the stadiums at the beginning, it was quite interesting to hear the coaches and the information that was given out. But you do miss that roar of 50, 60,000 people cheering when someone scores a goal. But as I said, we're getting there. It was great news with the Premier League saying that they're going to allow fans into the stadium, but we're not there yet. But thank you for asking, and I've been fine. I'm lucky enough with the kids. We've been close together. We've been doing lots of activities together, but I think they're ready to do their own thing now and be away from mum and dad. So that time will come.
Definitely, and like, of course, you have played, in front of a lot of passionate fans, especially in Newcastle during those days against under Kevin Keegan. I think that was the most successful period for them ever. Like at least what I know, like like coming runners up. How much do you think that that is affected? Like now you like when you see them playing right now, like generally not only Newcastle, any other team without fans.
Yeah, I think it's very adamant that the fans are a big part of the game, and particularly where I played in Newcastle in the northeast of England, they're very passionate. They worked Monday to Friday to go and to be entertained and to watch us. And part of that Kevin Keegan era of the mid-90s and going forward with Sir Bobby Robson, we did entertain. We played in the Champions League and beat the likes of Inter Milan and Barcelona going forward, and coming second to Manchester United twice and playing in FA Cup finals. It seems a distant memory, and it's just a shame that the fans haven't had the opportunity in recent years to go down to Wembley and to go and see a cup final or go into a game hoping that they can clinch Champions League or maybe even win the title. So, that era that I was involved with, which was magnificent for myself to play with the likes of Tino Asprilla, David Ginola, and obviously someone like Alan Shearer, who's the Premier League leading goal scorer, was a wonderful time. And the fans played a big part of that. And I think that's what's been so adamant that, they are missing at St James's Park. The noise, the atmosphere, they used to intimidate the opposition and get behind the players. And I think they've missed it. And I know the fans, because as I said, that area, it's you don't have a choice to support that club. You're born in that area, you support them. As soon as you're born, one of the aunts or uncles or brothers will buy you a Newcastle shirt, and even if you're 6 months old, you're wearing it. And for them not to be able to go and watch their team play and cheer them on is a big void in their life. Although it hasn't been great, some of their performance in recent times, they're still wonderful fans and get behind them, as majority of British fans are. And whether across the world, globally, the fans are missing, whether it's in Nepal where you are, or in the United States where I am, or in the Premier League where it's obviously the most watched league. Fans are a big part of it, and it gets the adrenaline going, it gets you motivated for the games, and it just sometimes can give you that extra lift to win a game. And we haven't had that in recent months, obviously.
Definitely. And right now you are in the States, and you said like how in maybe in UK you have like maybe you don't have a choice where you are born. Probably someone buys your jersey and you are committed for your life because you don't change your clubs. How is it in US? Like, do you find it deep? Like, because you come from where, like you mentioned already, like like one club throughout your life. It might not be something like that.
No, it's totally different. They really gravitate, they being the Americans, gravitate to a single person. Now, whether it's Ronaldo or Messi at the time, obviously lots of Real Madrid fans and Barcelona fans, like LeBron James, a lot of people will follow him from Cleveland to Miami to LA now. But what they are very passionate, and what the MLS has been doing, is going to different cities like Cincinnati and building a new stadium, or Atlanta. And the fans have gravitated toward it. It's new, it's exciting. It reminds me very much of what the Premier League was at the early 90s, where, of course, you had your fan base. You're born in Liverpool, you're either a blue or a red, Evertonian or Liverpool. You're born in Manchester, you're either United or City. So, you do get the exception. But in the States, they are getting used to supporting their local team. Obviously, when David Beckham was here, there was a lot of fans with LA Galaxy, and then obviously Zlatan. But that seems to have dwindled away now. People want to go and support their local team. They invest in it. You look at Seattle, in the Pacific Northwest. They're very much about their local team. They support their team. If a superstar leaves, they still get behind their team. So the mentality is changing, and it's being proud of their area, their town, and supporting their local team. So it's not that, because obviously in the UK it was 100 years of tradition and clubs being involved in that community and being part of it. But it's definitely buying into it, and they're proud of their teams. They're supporting their teams. They're wearing their colours, and they're educated about the game. Maybe 15 years ago it was still a little bit raw and a bit naive, but now the education that they do, whether it's they go on Wikipedia, Google, whatever they need to do, or watch numerous games. The education is there, and you can see now with the younger players that are going to Weston McKennie and Christian Pulisic that are playing. They're good players. There's no. I get a bit irritated when they say, "Well, it's great that they're playing in the Champions League." American players should be playing in the Champions League. They're good players, and once the United people get rid of that sort of insecurity and say, "Yeah, we do expect this. We expect you to be playing," the game is going to get bigger and bigger. So it's very exciting at the moment in the US. Even with this pandemic that has kicked in.
Definitely. And I think like it is only there to grow, because I think like you mentioned Cincinnati, you have Yap Stamp. I think he's the
Yeah.
huge name of the game. And then I think David Beckham's club, I think they got Ryan Shawcross this season. I think
Yeah,
recently.
no, exactly. Yeah, I know. Inter Milan are doing well. And, as I said, now it's being established all over the country. And I think people find it difficult because, maybe in your country, it would be that it's football and cricket. In England, it's like rugby, cricket, but football is predominant sport. Over here, you've got the NFL, which is a monster in itself in the sports. You've got baseball, which is very much regional and an older person sport, but baseball's still there. The NBA is young, exciting for people. Hockey. And then you throw on top of that the colleges over here, which are their own enterprise as well. Fox is a company that I work with, and they just signed a deal a couple of years ago with certain colleges for $1 billion just to show their NFL, like their football program and their basketball. So not only are you up against other major sports, you're up against traditions of college sports, college enterprise. Like Ohio State is a big one, Alabama, all these powerful colleges that generate so much income and money. So you're not only up against, as I said, major sports, you're up against traditions where sports where that have been in their blood. Their dad went there, their granddad went there, so they support that college as well.
But you come from one other thing I wanted to talk about is you come from a generation and a place where probably football was the main thing and everyone could access to play football. And in the recently, I think now you're in states, and I have seen many players, former players, complain that it's very expensive at the grassroots level. Do you think that will like kind of halt the maybe the progress of the growth of the sport?
Yeah, I mean, it was surreal to me when I first come over in '08 that people would pay like $2,000 to play a sport, and then not just soccer. It can be baseball, it can be football. They have private coaches that do private lessons that pay money. It's part of the culture, even with their tradition. When they have like college or exams, they get a tutor. They pay the money for that, and they have that yearly. So it's seen as just the normal that you pay that type of money. And for me, we didn't pay any money. We paid some, so they called it, gas money for the coach just to go and pay, and it was 10, $15. That's all it was, or pounds at the time. So to come here and to be part of that. But when you think of paying for an education, you're paying $60,000-$70,000 a year to pay for an education. Then you put that into perspective where you're getting coached by someone. You hope, and I think what's happened in recent times, like I said about the education, that there was a lot of coaches in the US that had an accent and said that they played here, said that they played there, and never did. But now you're finding people that have actually played and got qualifications. You know, I'm not saying it. I played 500 games. I played for my country, but I also got my qualifications. I've got my UEFA B, A, and Pro license. So I spent 7 years being educated in coaching. It's like I always put the narrative that if I was having my house done with an electrician, I'd hope for him to be qualified, not just because he's got an accent, that he knows how to put the lights up and blow my whole house up. So, you know, that's where they're getting educated. But it is so strange. You're right. It's a great question that, you know, to play grassroots, you have to have $300 in your bank account to be able to do that. And particularly in this time and world where everybody's hurting, that's going to have a knock-on effect. But until that changes, and, you know, the MLS clubs are trying to do that where the players don't have to play, there's scholarships, there's sponsorship to get these players in, you're still looking at a privileged select people that can pay for that.
Definitely. And you're like you mentioned your answer. I got a very good question from that. Like you said, you have played a lot of games, and you have a lot of experience, and you have also done education in coaching. Is education or the certification required to be a good coach, or experience is more important?
No, I think it's both. I think obviously, you know, Clarence Seedorf come out with it. I think it was this week about, you know, obviously predominantly black coaches is not being given the opportunity, which is right. It seems to be something that's been overlooked for many, many years. But Clarence has obviously played at the highest level. He won 4 Champions Leagues, but yet again, he's not been given the opportunity. Now, people may look and say, you know, does he need to have a coaching badge? Does he need to do that? The only thing that I found, and again, I'm nowhere near his level of what he did and what he achieved, but I played at a high level and played against that caliber of player. When I did my coaching license, it gave me a new idea, not about the game, but how to be organized, how to put sessions on, how to move the sessions along. And, you know, I think if you are lucky enough to be playing at a high level like he did, I would still do my coaching qualifications, because it just gives you a new dimension, a new idea of how to do it, because you've got so much knowledge in your brain, but how do you get it out? How do you get it across to players that haven't got that IQ of soccer of how to translate it? So, you know, he's absolutely right. The more people we have at the highest level, Thierry Henry, Sedans, these type of players of the world, but also do their coaching qualifications, I think it would be much beneficial for the game. You know, like I'm saying to my young players, I'm trying to give you 35 years of my experience. You know, now whether you take it or not is down to you, but it definitely helped me as a coach to have that knowledge, but then also understand how to deliver it to people and how to give it to a young player so they understand it and they take the information on board.
Definitely, definitely. And this question, it's very weird to ask in middle of the talk, like, but why football?
I had an older brother. We used to go out the house at 7 o'clock in the morning, go over the fields and play until the sun went down. He took me to a local team at the age of 7, 6 or 7. We played locally. And, you know, as I said, we used to play till morning to night over the local park. But that's all I knew, and it's all I loved. You know, we laugh about it. Me and my wife, we went to the same high school together, and we've been together now 29 years. And in her bag, she used to have books and folders and pencils and pens. I had this big Nike bag. I remember it now, a blue Nike bag with yellow tick, and all I had in there was a soccer ball. So, you know, that's all I knew. And that's what I wanted to do. And I fell in love with the game from day one. You know, even at a young age, I'm kicking the ball around with my older brother, and, you know, my dad being an Arsenal fan, him being an Arsenal fan, my brother, and again, me being an Arsenal fan. There was no choice, and that's what I wanted to do. So I did have an attempt at rugby, but them guys are crazy, jumping on each other. And then I had a go at cricket, but I wasn't very good at that. So soccer was something that I really gravitated to. And again, it was down to my older brother, and I owe him a lot of thanks, because he's the one that pushed me and when I used to take him on and go past him, he used to kick me. So I used to run quicker. So when I got past him, he couldn't catch me. So he helped me in my career a long way.
Definitely, and I think the club you supported and the club where you had your best time, I think Newcastle, both the places are not doing extremely well these days.
Yeah, I mean, it's hugely disappointing, and whether it's the ownership, whether it's their style of play, yeah, it's been a frustrating time.
Definitely, and like you said, you did your coaching batches and education, and now you're more involved more with the punditry. Like you didn't want to take up the coaching stuff.
I did, and when I was back in the UK, I coached at a lower level league, but then I got the opportunity to go to Sky, which was a big part of the Premier League, and was lucky enough to do that. And again, I got three young boys at the time. When we come to the States of 10, 8 and 4, I wanted to be with them. I wanted to take them to school. I wanted to see them in nativity plays and pick them up from school. And doing the punditry was a nice life that allowed me to be around my kids. Then I started getting into coaching at youth level, academy at Galaxy, and then obviously coaching my three young boys, which I've really enjoyed. It gave me a chance of being around them. But now they're older and I'm older. I would love to get into the game, whether it's in the MLS, whether it's back in Europe. There's a league here called the USL League as well, which is a league below the MLS. I'd love to have that opportunity. I've been in youth soccer for a long time now in the States, but I feel like I need to challenge myself a little bit more. So you just, again, waiting, you're putting your name around. But just at that time of my life, when I come out the game at 35, 36, that 10 years, I wanted to be with my kids. And I was lucky enough to be able to do that and had the opportunity with Sky, and I worked with the BBC, I worked with ITV with the World Cup, and then obviously coming to Fox Sports over here to give me the opportunity to do Premier League, Champions League, World Cups, Gold Cups. It's been a great opportunity, but there's a void in my soul really that I want to coach. I want to go out there. I want to try and be the best I possibly can. But you have to wait. You have to be patient. But patience is not something that I'm very good at. But yeah, I'd love to be involved in the game somewhere.
Like you said, like it's been a while since you coached, or probably at like any level because of your punditry work. So do you think it'll be difficult for you maybe getting back to it in terms of like how you handle stuff, or it will be
No, I think I was Brad Friedel as well was over here, and I coached with the U19, the US national team. For me, in an aspect of coaching is coaching, whether I'm coaching kids of 15, 16 or men at 27, 28. And while I've been over in the States as well, I've coached, amateur players and had to get a group of men together and get them motivated. And we was very successful. So, I do understand dealing with egos and players and agents and obviously dealing with, internal problems in the club with ownership and chief executives. I understand all that because part of your pro license is to educate you that it's not just about being on the training field. Again, that would either be someone, well, he hasn't coached for a while, and that's why I'm willing to show people that I can coach at whatever level. But playing the level that I did and obviously getting the qualifications, it doesn't fear me of being in a locker room or changing room with international players, because I played with a lot of them. So I'm able to do that. It's just getting the right opportunity, getting the right balance, and trying to take that opportunity when it's given to you. So, of course, I think people will look and say, well, he hasn't coached here, he hasn't coached here. But, you've got to try and prove to people once you get there. But I have been coaching for 12 years at a level, whether it's academy level, whether it's been amateur level, or whether it's been at LA Galaxy. I've been coaching. So I've not been just sitting there, doing punditry Saturday, Sunday mornings and then going home. I've been coaching, my week is Monday to Thursday I coach, and at the weekend I coach games. So I've had that experience, if you like, of being involved day to day. But obviously there's a difference being with, international players and the pressure that goes with that.
again like you might have partially answered this, but which one would you prefer, punditry or coaching?
Now coaching. I mean, as I said, for my time of life that I had was punditry. Punditry is easy, you just sit there, you watch a game, you're getting paid for it, you give your opinion. But I wouldn't say it's easy in the sense that what I found, and people like Andy Gray, when he first started with Sky, I was interested about with him is trying to identify something that you're passionate with, and when you do punditry, it's not just talk about the game. Everybody knows it was a good shot, Henri scored a great goal, or David Beckham put a good cross in. you've got to try and educate the fans why that happened or why they made a mistake. So that's what I've worked hard at my punditry and going behind the scenes. And the US media as well is totally different. You know, when you look at BBC or certain ways that people do it at Sky, it's a conversation. Here, it's you make your points, you've got 15, 20 seconds, make your point, the next one comes on. It's very much a totally different aspect of being a pundit in the US and talking about soccer than it is in the UK or probably all over the world. You know, whether I've been to Singapore and done games, it's totally different. In the US, you make your point. But now my time of life is the coaching. You know, as I said, that's something that's really, I know what it entails and I know what I need to do. You know, it's not just 3 or 4 hours a day coaching. You're 24/7, 24 hours a day. And I want to be part of that. I enjoy being around players. I enjoy, you know, coaching. I enjoy coaching against other coaches. So that's now what I'm ready to do. And I feel I'm still young enough and fit enough to do that. You know, I'm not over the hill yet.
Definitely. And you like you said like how you have to probably explain instead of just saying what happened on the screen to for the audience. How difficult is it to criticize someone whom you probably had or shared a dressing room or you know personally?
I'll give you a quick story. And always I've tried to be honest. You know, I was the PFA chairman. I was on the committee for 12 years. So I know a lot of players, lower league, high up. And I was doing a game for Manchester City and a player called Ben Thatcher did an elbow off the ball against Pablo Mendes, who was at Portsmouth at the time. And I knew Ben. I didn't play with Ben, but we was at the same club, Wimbledon, to the time. And I had a good friend of mine, Stuart Pearce, was a manager of Manchester City. So I used to go to Manchester quite a lot to see him. So the incident happened on the game, and I've said it's wrong. It's out of order. You know, he should never have done that. Lo and behold, the next week, Sky sent me to Manchester. So I phoned up Stuart Pearce and said, "Oh, I'm actually doing your game." Stuart said, "I'll come up on the Friday. We'll go out for dinner. Come in training the next day. And then I'll take you to the stadium." So perfect. When I go into training on the Saturday morning, who's training because he's been suspended is Ben Thatcher. So Ben Thatcher comes up to me, has a few choice words that he says to me. And I said, "Listen, Ben, in my opinion, you're out of order. I'm only saying how I feel. I'm not doing it personal to you." And, you know, maybe he didn't like it, but he accepted it. You know, he was saying we should all stick together. I said, "But Ben, it's wrong what you did. You've done, in my opinion, something that's, you know, shouldn't have got away with." And he, at the end of it, he tried to kick me in training, and we had the training session. But at the end of it, he sort of understood. And again, he maybe didn't like it, but I've always tried to be honest and fair, and that's probably how I played my game. So you do, you know, there are times that you say things, and you'll be in the tunnel, and you might have criticised a manager or a player, and they might end up coming over to you, but it's no different to when you play. You know, it's no you get involved with players, so you know. I'm not particularly worried too much. You look at other pundits as well, you know, as much as we love him or hate him, Roy Keane, he's always a bit negative. So that's how Roy is. But I think that sort of then wears thin, because it's like, well, you can't always be negative. I mean, some players do some good things, you know, and and again, it's always different. You know, people say different things.
Definitely. And you like how you said like when you went to the training, you all had that discussion like about that stuff. So so ideally, like what is said about players on maybe like tabloids or like through punditry, it does affect them, or they do keep a eye on it, right?
Oh, I think they definitely do. I think you've only got to look at social media. You know, some of the things that have been put out there, and obviously we've had a lot of problems with these fake accounts and people saying things that should never be in there. So they have a lot of responsibility, but particularly people do listen to it. You've only got to listen to Klopp. You know, if he is in the problem at the moment, he will revert to what someone said in the media, or what someone has said in the commentary box about his team. So it definitely affects them. It's a big part of the game, and what I love about it is how you handle it. I mean, Sir Alex Ferguson was one of the best at doing that with the mind games, you know, saying certain things, knowing that it would go out in the tabloids, know it would go out in the press, on the radio, the TV, and that would play on people's minds. And it's how you control that, and how you get get a grasp on that. So yeah, players definitely listen. Even in my time, you used to pick up the newspaper, and if you got a 5 or a 6, you take it to heart. Out of 10, at the marks that some journalists would give you, that you think, well, bloody hell, I thought I had a good game, but he's only given me a 7 today, or he's only given me a 6. So yeah, it's always been out there, but now obviously been magnifying with social media. Even with myself, when I've been working, I wake up. I might be doing a game for Fox, and there'll be a few tweets that come out. Some will be good, and some will be, oh, you're rubbish, you don't know what you're talking about. And that's part of it.
Definitely. And you spoke about Sir Alex Ferguson, how he probably is maybe the, if you're a student of the game, probably the ideal, like how you should probably use the media maybe for your benefit. And I think you're on the other side of the of the coin for that, when I think during your 1995 season, how was it like? You all had such a big lead. Like when you look back now, even like you think, how do you look back and think, okay, how did that happen?
Yeah, there's never a day go by that we regret what we did. The game against Manchester United, when we lost at home 1-0 to Eric Cantona, and all the mind games before, credit to them. They was magnificent. They virtually won every game. The last 17 games, they won about 15. 1-0, Peter Schmeichel. They had a winning mentality. Obviously, they go and win the treble a couple of years later. They go and win trophy after trophy after trophy. The mentality that he had, the way he changed from the Mark Hughes and Brian Robson era and Steve Bruce and Eric Cantona, then to the fledglings of Giggs, Beckham, Scholes, and then changing it to Rooney and Ronaldo. So he was magnificent in what he did. And as I said, we had 2 cup finals, and one of them was against the Arsene Wenger's growing into the Invincibles of what they was coming into. Then you had the year later, you play against the treble winning team. But it was an honour to play against them, and we went toe to toe. We beat them 5-0 in one game. So, I've met Sir Alex numerous times afterwards. He's a big fan of coming to the States and just being in his company and picking his brains about certain things, very much similar to, I had the great experience of being with Sir Bobby Robson, the ex-England manager, Barcelona manager, and working under Sir Bobby for 4 years and being his vice captain, and just taking on board all the advice and the experience that he's got. I was like a sponge, and that's what I want to give back. And to be around Sir Alex was magnificent in the sense of the way he handled the media, the way he handled players. And both of the 2 coaches that I'm talking about had the great knack of getting rid of players at the right time, of squeezing as much as he can out of them and then doing it. Probably the only one, and you brought his name up, was Yat Stamp. When he got rid of him, so Alex never really, it took him a couple of years to recover. And, the likes of Peter Schmeichel, it wasn't until Van der Sar come and Village come that they got back to what they was. But, they was magnificent. And but there's not a day go by to think, well, we was 12 points clear. If Butts could have done this, it would have been so different. But we just didn't have that next step. And we tried to it the next season. We bought Alan Shearer for £15 million as a world record, and we come second again. And then obviously they just kept on churning out trophy after trophy. So yeah, it was very, very difficult to accept. But listen, if you're going to get beat by the best that there ever has been, and he was that.
Definitely. Like you said, like how mind games, does mind games actually work? Like if suppose your manager goes and says certain stuff on the media, does it affect the players or it doesn't?
No, I don't think not so much the players. It affects the atmosphere in the stadium. The apprehensive of fans coming, because they listen to it, they read it. So if, for argument's sake, a coach says, oh, they're slow starters, they don't do very well, we know we can exploit their weakness, or whatever it may be, that translates into a game. So if someone then is a bit sloppy or slow, there's a few groans, a few moans, and then it's hard for athletes to, a little bit of confidence goes, then the fans start sensing that confidence, and it's a knock-on effect. So it doesn't necessarily affect the athletes, because you're supposed to be professionals. But it has been said, and it can just have a knock-on effect in the stadium. Like they may say, Sir Alex would say, a referee, if you go up to St James's, we never get a decision up there. The referee, the first thing, gets a decision. Our fans go against it. The referee then starts second-guessing him. These type of the things that are all happening. And then we start having a go at the referee. Oh, you're only doing it because he told you. And now he then has a go at us, and it's a knock-on. And now all of a sudden that instance has overtook the game because of that comment that was made the Friday night before the game. So it does have an effect. But you just have to be trying to be single minded and strong enough that you don't let it overall. But there's no doubt it affects people.
Definitely. And you have been in the company or played for like amazing managers, like you said. And was there any particular manager that like had a very big influence on you, like maybe even in the childhood or anyway?
So Bobby Robson for me was the perfect manager in the sense that he was a gentleman. I'm a little bit old school, so excuse it. So, but he was uh, a connoisseur of the game. He respected the game. He respected people. His tactical understanding of his players, his man management that you're talking about a big part of the higher level players is dealing with man management and egos. He was brilliant. The way he would treat the likes of maybe myself, Gary Speed, and Alan, to the likes of Craig Bellamy and Kieran Dyer, these younger players, how he would talk to them. But yeah, so Bobby has really given me a big influence of how I wanted to do it. And, again, my older brother and my father, the way that they was, they would open the car door for a woman and things like that. And if an older person was walking around, you let them walk in. Something that's a little bit missing in the world that we live in at the moment. But they're things that I take on board. But so Bobby in his moments, and I love listening to people like Pep Guardiola, the way he involves himself in the game and involves himself in the question. It's not just a flippant answer or an arrogant answer. He thinks about it. So again, even at my age now, someone like Pep, Klopp, the way that they are as people influence it. But for me, the whole package. I mean, Kevin Keegan was magnificent when we was winning. I was lucky enough to have Terry Venables with England before Euro '96, and Terry was brilliant as well. There was another coach that I was lucky enough, Ray Hartford, who won the Premier League with Blackburn, and Kenny Dalglish. Kenny Dalglish was another great person to be around. And even the ones that wasn't particularly great, like a Ruud Gullit, I learned off of Ruud, the good and the bad. Ruud wasn't very good at all with the man management skill and treating people. But tactically and the game, you could learn so much of them. But for me, it was always Sir Bobby Robson, about the way he was as a person in a football club. But I've also got my own ideas and my own way of doing things. But definitely someone I gravitate would be Sir Bobby. If you ever get a chance to watch the Netflix documentary, he's just a wonderful, wonderful person. And that translates to his players and his teams, the way that they played as well.
Definitely. And like I mean, like even if you do not say it, you can see what is available, like the amount of coaches who probably have come in from under him or probably who are inspired from him. Like if you see in Premier League itself, like in the top 6, 7, you have like maybe 2 or 3 of them who had maybe some direct contact or maybe indirect contact with him.
Yeah, I mean, Mourinho is the first one that comes to mind. Obviously he was his translator, and how he was, and but you listen to, Pep was at Barcelona when Bobby was there, and you can tell Pep has took one or two things of being a person, how he was into his game, not the tactical side, because I think he took a lot from Johan Cruyff, Pep Guardiola, but the actual being a person and having dignity and having respect, and even in adversity, still keeping that composure and not being drawn into that adversity. Pepper's took a little bit of that on board. I would think the way I've just watched him, the way he is, and I can just translate. And even in that documentary, the way he says things, it wasn't necessarily about the way he coached and the way he dealt with someone like Ronaldo at that time, who was the best player in the world, and going into a club like Barcelona. But it's the way he handled the pressure and the way he handled people and the way he handled the journalists. I think that's something that's stuck in his mind as well, which is great credit to Sir Bobby, because he didn't speak the language, but he understood what he was involved with.
Definitely. And like when you talk about like these days, tactics are spoken about a lot, like even in the post-match, pre-match, or even in intervals. And in generally, when you speak of the Premier League at the highest level, you have like the world beaters probably, like who probably given on any day, if you just put them out, they'll probably win. Is tactics that important, or is it overall like man management, like you said?
No, I think it's a mixture of everything. I don't think you can just say it's man management. I think it is dealing with players. I think it's getting the best out of your players at the right time, and again, getting to know what their mindset is at the moment. But tactics is definitely part of it. I think anyone that throws the flipping comment that no, tactics is not part of it is that a bit outdated, because it is. It is. When I played, there was only a few ways of playing. You play 4-4-2, 4-3-3, and that was sort of it. Villa played a little bit in Terry and was played three at the back, but it was predominantly that sort of style. Now you've had Christmas trees, you've had there's every style going with high press, low press, ticky tack. The list goes on and on. There's heavy metal soccer. There's all these different terms. So you're not playing against teams that play virtually the same as you play. Virtually every team plays a different style. Now, whether they're good enough as players to hurt you, that's another thing. The quality normally always comes to the top. But there's definitely certain styles of playing. Look at Leeds, how they play. That's beyond my belief, because they just run everywhere. I mean, how do you coach that? How do you try and match what they're trying to do? So, no, tactics is a huge, huge part of the game, the modern game now. And anyone that says different is a little bit outdated, because it is, because everyone's playing different styles. And not everybody plays the same style home and away. Teams play different styles when they're playing away from they do at home. And also, if certain players are in the team, like Van Dijk, they play a high line. Now they haven't got that; they've got to drop off it. So there's different. That all comes into it as well. So that's, again, going back to your original question. That's why I want to get back in the game, because I think it's so interesting. I think it's fascinating now to be involved in that. You won't sleep at night, but you try and put your experience and your knowledge against someone else.
Definitely. And also, like, I think, like, another thing that has evolved is probably specialization. Like, you have like throw-in coach. What is your concept of that?
No, again, being in the States, you've only got to look at the NFL. They have a kicking coach, special teams coach, offensive coach, defense coach, coach of a coach of a coach. So, yeah, I think there's an ideal way if you can do it. The only problem you have is it's okay with the Premier League with the finances, but the lower league teams can't afford to have. But I think having someone that does all the analysts of a game and breaking games down, that's a big part of it, to watch where you can get better, and obviously watch where you've done well. So that's part of it. Your fitness coach is huge. Your goalkeeping coach obviously is specialised. So again, it's just part of the game. But I do sometimes, it does amuse me when you see so many people on the bench, and the players must be, well, who's taking the lead? Who's taking the lead? But again, being in the States and being involved, yeah, I get it. I understand it now. When say that you're attacking and the offensive coach, he takes the lead, then he comes out of it. The defensive coach steps up. So you have to have that mutual respect for each other. I remember when I was doing my pro license, it was having a technical director at a club, and I went to Holland, and virtually every team in Holland had a technical director that would have the ideas and the go between against the reserves, the youth team, and the European scouts. And England was like, no, we don't need that. We don't have that. That was why would you have a technical director? Now everybody's got one, because you need to have that. The job is too big for one person. Again, someone like Sir Bobby and Sir Alex would find it difficult now, because they want to run the whole club, and you can't do that now. There's too much money and pressure by doing that. You look at a club like Dortmund, the way that they're looking and buying players so far ahead that, they're not even thinking about the coach they've got. They're looking about the next player, that's Haaland's, when he goes, which will probably be in 2 years, who's going to take his place, and Sanchez. So they're already doing it. They're already looking that far ahead. And Ajax was probably one of the first clubs, when you think about what they was doing in the 70s and 80s, that was that forward thinking about that. So yeah, there's definitely a place for a specialist coach.
No, like, I completely agree with your last point, and I think like it's better for the club because like no individual is bigger than the club, and the club has to run irrespective of if someone is there or not there. And for them, I think having a bigger structure is more important than maybe building around one person. Like you said, like about Haaland, I think the other guy, I think they sold to Real Sociedad. I think they have a buyback option. I think that is also
Yeah,
being
yeah.
talked
And
about.
Sancho,
Like
they
why?
get Sancho from Manchester City for 7 million. They could have sold him for 110 million 2 years later. So that's, when I look at what clubs do, and my club near to my heart, Newcastle, there's never been a structure. There's never been a culture and a philosophy of what they're trying to do. A new manager comes in, he buys what he can. Next one, he leaves, another one comes in. So there's no structure. When you play for Newcastle, this is how we're going to play. It's just whoever comes in. And that Newcastle's not the only club as well. I look at other clubs, but there's no thinking. If I'm buying a business for 400 million pounds, I want to know how it's going to be run. I'm not just going to open the doors and say, "Go on, off you go, and let's see what happens." I mean, it's mind blowing sometimes when you think of that.
Definitely. And like you spoke about Newcastle, do you think like they're in a big trouble? Like do you think the relegation is a possibility?
It's a possibility because of where they are, but I don't think it's just Newcastle. I think there's a few other teams that could get brought into it. Brighton being one, Fulham on the run at the moment. But yeah, it's a big concern because when you think 3 months ago, we was actually talking about maybe getting into Europe. The way that they've started, Wilson was scoring goals. They've got some players. It was looking positive, but the style of football, the negativity, again, with the social media and the fans, now the players are in a shell. They don't feel confident. They need a lift. So they are definitely in a relegation battle. And the way you need to get out of that is by a lift. You need to be positive. You need to be aggressive. You need to be focused. You need to be driven before it even starts. And that's when they should have kicked on again, but they haven't. But as I said, I do believe they're in a relegation battle, but I also do believe there's three other teams that possibly Sheffield United and West Brom, I think, are down. Fulham are fighting their way out of it. But I think Newcastle have just about got enough to get out of it, just about. But that sickens me that I'm having to say that Newcastle are just about surviving because, again, early part of your interview was when we was trying to challenge and playing in FA Cup finals and, playing in the Champions League. And I look at teams like Leicester, Everton, West Ham, why on earth are Newcastle not up there? I understand Liverpool, Man City, because of what's happened in recent years, and even to the likes of Man United and Chelsea with the finance they've got. But I look at what Leicester do as a club and the way that they buy players, the way that they, look into strengthen. They sell Maguire, they bring someone in from another league. They sell Chilwell, the left back. They've got someone ready made. They're thinking about what they're doing rather than, they're proactive rather than reactive. And that's what's happening at the moment with Newcastle. They desperately need a lift. They need someone like Steven Gerrard has done at Glasgow Rangers. He's grab it around the neck, the club, and take it forward and be a leader and don't just accept what's going on.
Definitely. And like I think what some few names you have mentioned there, I think one that I particularly have to put in is Brentford. I think the championship are extremely well run.
Yeah,
They have one team
yeah.
that is like amazingly they have used stats and everything, and it's personally when you look
Well,
at them, amazing.
yeah. I mean, it's like the Moneyball film, like they did with the Oakland baseball team. They looked at it, and going back to what I said before, to have someone who does your analytics and looking at stats is vitally important. If you're going to be a team that's going to rely on service into crosses into the box, you need someone that can put a ball in there. And Frankfurt did it as well. That when they had Haaland and they was doing well, there was a reason why that they had someone that could deliver the ball into there so he could score goals. And then he goes to West Ham. West Ham don't have someone that can cross a ball. They've got players that want to play combination. So again, going back to what I said, it's, Brentford do it. They understand how they play. Another team, I think it's, I spoke to a good friend of mine, Neil Hardley, who's at Notts County. They're trying to do it at a lesser budget, but the same concept of trying to get players that fit a system that gets supplies into the box, and that's how the game is changing. And going back to what I said before, that's why you need to know your tactics, because if you're playing against a team that are stat driven, you've got to then try and find out what their stats are poor at. Now, Brentford are great going forward, but they are poor trying to play out from the back. So that's what you want to try and do, and you're trying to exploit their weaknesses.
Definitely. And I think like you said, Moneyball, like I think beneficiary have been AZ Alkmaar, where I think Billy Bean himself has been involved in a lot of stuff. So yeah, so you are seeing a lot of stuff like that. I think Newcastle probably should also step up the game, like with time.
You would think so. You would hope so as well.
So we'll I have like last two or three questions before we wrap up, and like this will be more pertaining going back to your career as a player. With Do you have any particular opponent you did not face, like facing, like any particular type of opponent, or even any particular guy person?
No, I mean, I always rose to the challenge, I think, and being told it twice at 16 and 13, you're too small, you're not going to make it. But I wanted to play against the likes of Ryan Giggs. Obviously, I was a right back. He was a left winger. Harry Kewell as well was a very good player. Um, there's certain players. There's a guy called Stuart Gray actually that was a real. And people like Nigel Winterburn was always difficult to play against. They was really scrappy fighters and tenacious. And someone again like Stuart Pearce, Psycho. He wouldn't hold back. He would tackle you. But I never really, I remember playing against Thierry Henry, and he used to always drift out to the left hand side. And he used to think, oh no, my wife and kids are watching here. He's going to embarrass me. But you sort of try and play against the best. And that's what I tried to do. But it was them ones, like I said, a Nigel Winterburn that was difficult to play against because they never give you a moment's rest. They was always snapping at your heels. I remember like a little terrier dog that always snapping and biting and scratching and pulling, and they was difficult to play against. So they're the ones that gave me a problem. Not, if you like, a Ryan Giggs, because you want to play against players like that. You want to pit yourself against the best. I mean, Ryan, sometimes will give me a hard time, and there'll be other times that I would do well against him. So, they're the players you want to play against.
Definitely. So like the second last question is like, do you have any particular moment or any particular game that you think of anytime you are free, or something that comes to your mind?
I think when we beat Barcelona in the Champions League, and when the likes of Figo and Rivaldo was playing and Luis Enrique, first game in the Champions League, you're not only at home at St James's Park, where the atmosphere is going to be electric, but you're playing against one of the biggest clubs in the world, Barcelona, and some of the biggest players in the world, as I mentioned. So that one sticks out. My first game for Newcastle, when we played at home, the whole stadium was wearing black and white. Yeah, England debut is always one that you thought. But, being an Arsenal fan as well, I remember Arsenal at the late 70s and 80s getting to 3 cup finals, and Alan Sunderland, a name from the past for Arsenal, scored the winning goal against Manchester City. Sorry, Manchester United. So playing in an FA Cup final was always something that I wanted to do, and I was lucky enough to do that as well and be involved in 2 of them. So, they're the ones that stick into my mind. But, you're retired a long time, so all of them you really think about, and some of them they keep popping up, but you want to forget about them because you had a bit of a nightmare, so you don't want to worry about them. But representing your country, playing in cup finals, playing against the likes of Barcelona, they're memories that no one can ever take them away from you.
Definitely. And like, I'll wrap it up with one final question, and this is more like an advice. Like, if you had to give to any emerging, or like any person any young players who are just coming through, what advice would you give that player?
I would say enjoy it, and give everything you can to the game, because it will give you everything back. It's a wonderful career. To be a professional athlete, period, is something that's sensational, and be proud of what you're doing. But obviously, you hear the likes of Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, Muhammad Ali. It's hard work. It's not easy, and you've got to be prepared to put in that shift and put in that hard work. But enjoy it. Enjoy every minute of it. But respect the game. Respect the sport. Whatever you're going into, respect it. And as I said, if you give it everything, it will give you everything back. It may be in different terms. It's not just financially, but it will give you rewards in other ways that other careers can't. There's no better feeling than scoring a goal. There's no better feeling than probably sinking a putt. There's no probably better feeling. I've never done it, but knocking someone out. They're the things that you want to try and emulate. So, as you can probably tell, I love my sport. I love sport, and scoring a winning point in a basketball game, or what Tom Brady's been able to do. They're the things you live for, and that's what you want to try and do. But as I said, I've got 3 young boys, and I've always said to them, enjoy it and give everything you got, and hopefully the game will give it to you back. But it's hard work. It's not easy. It's not easy, but it beats being on a building site working, 15 hours a day, lifting bags of concrete and cement everywhere. So, that's hard work. That's being hard work, getting up and having to feed your family, getting on a field and running around on a bike. And that's not hard work.
Definitely. And on that note, Warren, thank you so much for talking to me. And I wish you all the best for your endeavors, be it with punditry or hope to see you in the touchline soon, whichever level that is, and hope to see you maybe guide Newcastle all the way back to the
Yeah.
glory days.
Well, you can do my first interview. If it ever goes well and we win a game, I'll get you over. You can do the first interview. So that's an
Sure,
absolute pleasure. But stay
thank you so
safe.
much.
That's a
And
big thing as well. I wish you all the best in the future.